really glad to be here and to round out your day. We'll do a quick lightning round of introductions so that the guests here can introduce themselves. And we're just going to dive right in. After intros, we'll spend a little bit of time with each of our panelists, hearing a little bit about what embedded means to them and what their companies are up to in the space before we have a little more dialogue. So again, Niki Manby, I am from Mutual of Omaha. We are a Fortune 300 life, health, and wealth company, and I'm really glad to be here with our panelists. Woody?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. We are very, very in the middle of embedded insurance. InsureMO means insurance middle office, and it is really to power a connected insurance ecosystem. So we serve a lot of channels, a lot of carriers, a lot of tech companies, and we are really very excited about the future, and we have a lot of real experience. Some of our channel customers, like Ola in India, now issue 1.5 million policy every day on our platform. So these are the scales we are seeing in real and sustainable, and we know a lot of things, and we want to share with the audience here.
Very good. Trenholm, introduce yourself.
Thank you. Trenholm Palmer. I'm responsible for the U.S. insurance business for Volvo Financial Services. We cater predominantly to our financed asset customer base, which is heavy trucks, construction equipment, buses, and several other areas. For us, everyone has a different definition of embedded, of course. For us, the embedded aspect of what we do really comes down to process. By virtue of the fact that we distribute our products through a dealership distribution network around the country, all 50 states, we replicate that model in about 42 other countries around the world as well. All the challenges that come with that in the US and in different states. So for us, we very rarely interact with what most people would think of as the customer. Our customer, from a process standpoint, is really the dealership network itself. So I'll talk more about that as we go through, but that's sort of our biggest definition of embedded.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you. You said whiskey. I figure at this time of day, it should be like Fireball for everybody, you know, like kind of rounding it out. Jeremy Coffman, I'm head of strategic partnerships for farmers. I have two main verticals, I think, related to embedded insurance. One is we identify and evaluate and launch products and services that support farmers, agents that are outside of the home and auto, right? So these sort of natural adjacent products. And launching those isn't necessarily embedded, but I think of like Trenholm in the process by which they can sell these, and not saying, hey, do this, but it's over on this webpage that you never go to, but how do you make that as part of the conversations that our agents have with customers? And then on the other side, and really responsible for a lot of our meetings this week, and we've had a lot, are our digital partnerships where we sell our IA products, foremost in Bristol West, with a number of platform organizations here. And we love the idea of being involved in things like mortgage origination and loan processing and those areas where they need insurance, and we can sit there. And then I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my Toggle folks out there somewhere in the audience that also do an incredible job with embedded insurance with relationships like Toyota and other automobiles and OEMs and things like that. So that's kind of how farmers and foremost in Bristol West and Toggle sit within that space.
Very good. And Eduardo, round us out.
Well, we are a full carrier insurance company in Brazil. We invested in a company that had already 45 years old at 2020, and it was a small company in Brazil. We rebranded it, and we focused a lot on designing products and distribution strategy. We rebranded and invested right in the middle of COVID. I decided to leave the insurance company that I was a country manager in Brazil to actually venture in something new in the middle of COVID. Some people called me crazy. I would say that was a good bet back then, still is. And it's interesting to be here and share a few information of what is our experience and what we've seen so far. So it'll be interesting for us too.
Yeah, great. Well, I hope you've had a glimpse at a good bit of diversity we've got here. commercial, personal, a couple representatives outside of the US, in addition to different roles in the ecosystem, consumer-facing, infrastructure. I want to start by really keying off on the title of our panel, Building Sustainable Models. Curious to hear a little bit from each of you about where you are on the journey. Are you at a point where you've hit the growth that you intended to hit and you're in that sustain mode, or are you still really a little bit earlier on the maturity stage? Maybe, Trenholm, I'll start with you because you mentioned a lot of countries in your introduction. Let's hear a little bit about where you think you are on the maturity curve.
Sure, it's an interesting mix because on the one hand, the space that we play in when it comes to heavy trucking, for example, that insurance industry is very mature and very competitive, but also highly fragmented. There's a lot of opportunity in that world. Our customers range from one person with one truck all the way up to Amazon and every customer segment in between in terms of size and type. So I would say, I have to say, we're very early penetrating into the overall market opportunity. We have really two avenues that we approach. The first, which is where my allegiance lies first, is with our financed asset world, our finance customers. And then there's the other very large percentage of customers that buy our trucks and construction equipment, but they don't finance with us. They go with Bank of America or Wells Fargo or BMO or whoever the other options are. From year to year, that's a hugely competitive part of our space. So everything that we do from the insurance end of the business has to be complementary to the core of what we call our captive difference. Not captive as in captive insurance company, but captive as in a captive finance organization. So every product that we create and every enhancement that we create has to flow within the process of a loan or a lease offering out to our customers. Does it complement it? Does it make it more competitive? Does it, frankly, make it easier for our distribution network to see more uptake as a result of what we've added to the process? Ultimately, the best thing we can do, the best outcome that we can have, is for the customer and the dealership personnel to hardly even know that it's there, right? Which I think is sort of gets to the heart and the essence of what embedded is all about, customer experience, but then also the process and the people leading up to the moment of purchase. So we're back to your original question, we're very early days. We've been in and out of the insurance business with several different models over the last few years, over the last 2 decades. And we're having to regain trust with our dealership and our customer network. Why do we have a better model now? And we have to answer to that. We have to answer that question with accountability. So, but we're very early with our progress.
Have you had to wait for some of those journeys to become digital? Has that been something that is moving fast enough to be able to support the embedded ambitions?
There's a lot of opportunity there to improve process, particularly with digital uptake. Ours is a paper-heavy business. We've eliminated most, if not all of it, on the insurance side. When you look at financing, asset-based lending, that's a very heavy, that process is a lot like insurance underwriting. Credit underwriting and insurance underwriting are nearly identical with a slightly different set of semantics. Ultimately, our goal is to completely remove that friction from the process altogether, and to more vertically integrate as much of the process within VFS, as much of that as we possibly can, with as few partners as possible. We're not an insurance company. We're really an intermediary in a bunch of different ways. So we have the option of working with any insurance company, MGA, MGU, you name it, that we want. But in order to fit within the next generation of what we're looking to achieve, it has to be 100% digital.
Woody, could you talk a little bit about how you're viewing this progress on the digital journey that really has to be in place before embedded can root? I know you see a wide range in the platform services you provide. So maybe share a little bit more about your company and then your point of view on the digitization progress.
Thank you. We serve a lot of customers in a lot of countries. We are very honored. We also are now partnered with the Volvo, for their, big business potential, globally, hopefully. soon in the US as well. But in Asia, we are doing a lot of amazing things. Like I mentioned Ola in India. We also serve Tata Motor Finance. So every single loan they do around car, we have API in their lending software as part of the lending process. One check, they can sell insurance, right? So that is how embedded it is now. And Amazon, I'm very happy. On Monday, I signed a contract with Amazon. Amazon India now is using InsureMO to power all their insurance business. Every, including so-called sign my insurance, like extended warranties, everything. So basically anything protection around is powered by our platform. In Japan, we have the top 2 credit card companies, JCB, SMBC. They are using our platform to power all their insurance business. Number 1 telco in Japan. Number 1 telco in Vietnam. So all these are very exciting, real stuff. So I talk about Ola, every day 1.5 million policies now, right? So, so some companies already figure out how to do it. And we have still some companies are struggling and trying to figure out. So you're right, there's a lot of other elements that make it work or not work, right?
Who's more ready? The distributors who want to embed a risk protection product into their customers' journeys, or the carriers who would plug into your platform to be able to serve the partners on the other end?
Well, I mean, in general, there are always exceptions, but I want to be honest, carriers are way behind what ecosystem want, okay? So we have car dealers in Asia. They sell literally hundreds of SKUs, not only car insurance, A&H insurance, all the other related services, extended warranty, car wash, everything, tire replacement. So they are really driving a very, very big customer-centric thinking, okay? Whatever this driver wants, I want to sell them, right? So their speed to market is literally days. They want something, they want it in a few days. So this is going to be way beyond what typically a carrier can match. So that is why our platform is becoming very, very welcome by both sides, okay, by carriers as well by channels. So I talk about Ola. Ola, to launch their insurance business on our platform, on the app, to be available, is 10 days. We did it in 10 days, right? So that is the kind of speed carriers are just not set up to do. So if there's any big challenge, I would say it's mostly in the carrier part.
Yep. I think that resonates with me as well. I love the international experience and being able to share what I think we in the US might be able to learn from others. Eduardo, maybe I'll toss it over to you to share with the group a little bit about this embedded scene in Brazil. You've shared some amazing numbers in terms of the traction.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting to see. We, at first, when we started to build the business, we knew that we were no Zurich, Liberty, Chubb, Mapfre, or whatever. We had to actually understand what market we were and what were the opportunities. And embedded for us was something that we were actually basically born with the mentality over embedded insurance. And reason why is because we, as I mentioned, we were in the middle of COVID. We knew that the customers were expecting something different at the companies that we were before, not only me, but my partners also, they came from the market. And we knew exactly what would be the challenges that the other carriers would face. And we look at the market, we look at the customer, and we started to understand that it's not only your capability to deliver a policy, it's not only your capability to deliver a coverage, it's beyond that. The client is expecting much more than that. It's expecting your service, it's expecting an online response, it's expecting your post-sales experience, it's expecting many different things. And when we started developing the technology was just a part of it. The most important was, how can you think about products that haven't been launched yet, that haven't been sold yet in the market, and how can you remodel the products that were in the market to actually attend what's the new expectation that these clients have. And that's when we redesigned the portfolio, we redesigned our technology, and we understood that beyond our own name, that some people still have a hard time to actually pronounce it sometimes, but it's good, it's okay. It wasn't never our first goal. It's to be behind our partners, behind large distribution channels where we can actually interact with the client through our partners, and we can actually enhance the way that they sell insurance through their platforms, and doing that in a seamless structure. So for yesterday, we had the opportunity to actually share in the ITC LATAM panel, and we're saying there are so many things that we can do in Brazil. And I was mentioning even before, imagine Brazil as being a state of the US, because we're all under one single regulation, regulatory system, and so on. So for us, like being a one single state in the US with 210 million people. It's tough for one side, but it's actually a green field for the other. And for us, that was a great opportunity to build the products and do something new. And I'll share a bit more later on, because I took my time already.
Oh, it sounds good. I want to key off one of the things you mentioned in terms of this sort of policy growth. And maybe, Jeremy, I'll toss this one your way. Either today or as you think forward, how much of the embedded traction do you think will come from policy products that exist today? Or will the focus of some of these distribution leaders really push the manufacturers to design new product that looks different than what's on their shelf today?
Oh, so that's a great question. I would say, by the way, I was really surprised to hear that carriers were behind in that whole...
I know. I heard the shock and awe audience.
Exception, always.
Very, very true, Woody. Very true.
Always exceptions.
Exactly. Thank you. I would say we're trying to... So everybody says we want to meet the customer wherever they want to purchase. And we say that, but then we get to the point where it's attracting the customer, but we don't necessarily build the journey all the way through till the end. And for our organization, depending upon the products that you look at, we have an auto product now that we call end-to-end, which we've actually gotten to that point where if somebody chooses to take that digital journey within that product, they can complete that all the way through. And it's interesting meeting with clients this week. Some of them are catching up to us in terms of distributing this product, right? Because they have different philosophies around at what point do they want to bring them back in and have agents talk to them, and they have the human element to that. We just had a conversation like that today. But I think embedded, when I think in the future, I think about the fact that carriers are updating their systems to be able to accommodate these products. It's part of the conversation. It's not... feel free to record if you want. It's all right. It's pretty riveting stuff. So I think that now it's contemplated as we design the product to say, okay, we have to think about embedding, whether it's coverage or functionality, or taking the product and embedding it somewhere else. Where before it was sort of like, okay, well, we have to take this square peg, round hole approach, and we got to try to make it work. And now we're thinking about it from that perspective, and having conversations with customers. I love, the whole idea of supporting partnerships, and we look at it that way. It's not like, okay, well, you have to come along with us anymore. It's like, how do you wish to do business, and how do you wish to? A lot of our relationships are B2B2B. So it's how do we support that business that can then support another business? And I think I'll tell you, for farmers, it's a big deal, right? When you go from like a captive agency thought process, we still have that, we support that, but supporting like multiple businesses within that process is something very new to us. And I think other carriers are doing it too. They're seeing that approach.
How is that end-to-end that you're striving for, sounds like even achieved in one product area, how is that shifting the nature of how you think about data coming in, data coming out, and what will the view on data through the embedded lens look like as we continue to gain traction in this?
Yeah. I immediately start thinking about the cost of the data. And at what point are you purchasing the data where you know that the customer is going to purchase the policy? It's amazing. A lot of times we think of top of the funnel and we go, okay, like bring the leads in. And then you look at the cost of, purchasing the credit, doing a credit pull, and it can be the point where you can create a model that's not even sustainable. The way that we look at it is maybe a little bit different. I'll share an example. So Farmers has developed a platform. So not just D2C, but now we're thinking about it from an agent to consumer standpoint. I mean, it costs a lot of money to get somebody to walk into somebody's office. You can't have them leave without a product. But how you offer the products and in which products you offer and which ones you don't are equally important. So we've built what we call a recommendation engine. So as you bring in information about a client, the system actually tells you this should be the best product that you should offer to them. This could be a cross-sell. And it's obviously, it's really indigenous to Farmers products, but it doesn't stop there. It starts with other products too, right? I just saw a stat the other day, everybody talks about retention. So the home and auto, 8 years, you add the third policy, it's 13 years that you hold onto a customer. So we think about it from that perspective. How do we support agents by being in that process and making it really easy so that they, because they build habits. And you don't want to destroy the habits, but you want to make sure that you can reinforce conversations and you're offering the most specific products that are right for that customer. And all of that is through data and data sharing. And we're actually really big on that. We're reaching out to partners to say, hey, we have a lot of, first we had to figure out if we could share it, right? That was a fun time with a lot of conversations with our attorneys. But then we said, okay, now we have all this 7-8 million households. How do we go out and share that with somebody to make another partner relevant in how they sell their product? And how do we capture more customers on our side?
Any other thoughts around the data theme as this ecosystem evolves especially with new intermediaries like platforms that are connecting carriers to endpoints? How are you thinking about the possibilities that data sharing through your platform can present?
Well, I mean, this is a very important topic. It is also a little bit sensitive, right? The kind of the ownership of the data, who really own what data, because we are actually in the middle of a huge of the data, right? I mean, we serve both sides. We serve carriers, we serve channels, and data sit in our platform. So we are very cautious and very professional in terms of what can or should be done, what cannot and should be not be done, right? So, but just learning from the data itself, there's a lot of benefit for the industry, right? So what kind of people like what kind of product, and then the claim experience, all that stuff. So we are certainly, very still early stage, but we are very keen to work with all the AI providers to try to make a lot of sense out of the data. And this data is exploding like crazy. Okay, so just one place where we operate a dealership platform. Every month we have a few million policies. So think about all that important data, right? Everyone wants to kind of use it, right? So I personally believe that there's a huge opportunity, especially now with the AI. Even you don't track use the individual data, just this collective learning, ability is huge. But again, it is a very sensitive topic, and it is something that we need to handle very professionally and ethically.
Can I add on to that real quick? We had a conversation with a company, internet company, and you start to realize that through the internet now, you know how many devices are being used at the same time, when they're being used. And it was funny, both of us kept kind of like peeling the onion back further and further, and you start realizing, oh my gosh, it's kind of scary. And then you just stop the conversation, right? But to Woody's point there, like that data, unbelievable how you can learn so much about underwriting and predisposition to products and things. And so it's pretty massive.
Well, data is just as good as what you can do with it. I mean, if you cannot do anything with data, data is not worth nothing. What we saw, the way that data works and the way that I have actually mentioned when we were talking earlier, when we started selling the product and we're testing the market and testing the customer response, embedding the opportunity within transactional operations within a fintech, one of the largest fintechs in Latin America. And when we started to understand the customer behavior, and as we had analytics and we had information, we're able to actually adjust the offer to better enhance it and to better deliver it. And at the end of the day, I don't know how you guys, I know you have iMessage or you use a message system here, but in Brazil, most of the communication is done through WhatsApp. So at the end of the day, when they were going through all the experience and they were going through all the purchasing process, and they left the abandoned cart where they didn't purchase anything, we're actually using that to push through WhatsApp with a one-click sales of a certain product. So they were receiving, I realized you were interested in this product. If you're still interested, just say yes, and we'll get your coverage, or we'll get you your assistance, or we'll get you the service you need. And with one click, we're actually offering the coverage within. So that was what we used with data, adjusting the journey, adjusting the offer, adjusting the product, and delivering what the client wanted. And if you can enhance using that data is very important. If that data is yours and it's available for you, of course.
Are you at the stage yet where you're able to personalize on a one-to-one basis an offering based on a customer's behavior in the flow?
No, and it makes total, it changed quite a lot the way that we even were able to deliver the product and the price that we charge, and so it impacted the whole thing. At the beginning of 2022, for instance, we're selling 10,000 policies a month. Last few months, we're selling over 1 million policies per month. So the changes behind, once you have the structure, the technology, once you have the products, but you understood that the products are adjusted to what the customer needs. And when you can have a great customer journey within an embedded, a fully and truly embedded operation where it's a seamless way of having a protection, or at the end of the day, even receiving a service, you're not there for the protection, you're actually there for the service, for instance. So Brazilians they have a hard time on buying insurance because what's the advantage that I have at the end of the day with it? Mm-hmm. And you have to transform that into an experience where you are adding value in different ways. So that's the interesting part of it.
Are you seeing, Trenholm, that kind of a customization need yet on the B2B side, or is your business segmented sufficiently that you can really push a lot of similar product out to large quantities of customers?
It's a challenge for us, I would say. The customization piece has a long way to go for commercial fleets and large construction businesses. I'm thinking about what Woody said earlier about taking customer data and adding on sort of non-core product offerings to surround the customer with optionality. That's something that we're working on. It's a big part of what we're doing. One of the big data challenges for us in order to customize offerings is really separating signal from noise. If you look at one of our assets, for example, a new truck, a new Class 8 truck is firing off 500, 600 fault codes in any given moment. And so for us, for our capacity providers, for the customer, for our technology partners, from among those several hundred data streams, which are the ones that matter, right? In order to be able to profile risk, to price, and to simplify the data streams. There's a lot more there for the future to develop customization. I think in the near term, what we're most interested in is what's just enough today that'll look completely different in a year, 2 years, 5 years. We can layer on more data. It comes at a cost, right? Of course, that factors into it as well. And we have to be very mindful of data ownership. Data ownership for an individual, my house, my car, right? It's a little bit different for a fleet when you might have a business owner who's making a decision on behalf of thousands of people all at once, thousands of drivers. and they may or may not be aware of that data sharing decision-making that's been made at the principal level. So we have to keep that in mind, but I would say the more we're able to harness the data, the better the customization can become over time. But for us, that's the big near and medium-term challenge.
I'm going to open it up here in a minute to questions from the audience. So there's a microphone there in the aisle if you want to queue up with any questions you've got for our great panel here. I've got one while the audience does some thinking, and it's just around this need for platform services to help do the matchmaking between the distribution points and the carriers who will provide product. Regardless of which end of the spectrum you might be on, how do you think about the number of relationships you'll ultimately have? Is it, from a carrier side, is it find a single partner and hope that they'll be able to deliver all the distribution points you want? Or do you ultimately see multiple platform partnerships in order to be able to get the reach to the other side, regardless of which side you're on? What have you seen in Brazil, Eduardo?
Well, I'll tell you that much. The strategy that we've thought was to actually have a very, very diverse structure. And reason why, so that we wouldn't depend. I came from another insurance company where we couldn't do anything because we were tied to a single structure, ERP, and we couldn't move anywhere. So I said, once I'm out of there, I want to create something where we have the possibility at hand. And as I was looking to my kids working with their Lego, I said, I want a green board where you can just place and put the Legos up there and construct and build anything you want. Being able to replace one brick or another depending on your timing, depending on your product, depending on your market, on regulatory structure. So those are things that I think you have to bear in mind when you're building a business. Is the dependency on a few solutions might help you to push your business forward, but that also will probably keep you chained to it if you're thinking on expanding and accelerating your growth.
I know from the carrier side, you can agree with the thesis of multiple integrations, providing a pathway to just broader scale, but it's hard, right, Jeremy? How are you thinking about this at Farmers?
So I agree. I think we look at it from multiple partners, but then we put a filter on it, and our filter is we need to be about 5% of that organization's revenue to be meaningful enough for us to build something that is a partnership. I mean, that's our team is partnership. So it can't be so transactional. We need them to invest in us, and we'll invest in them. But we're happy to take multiple partners because people the behaviors of how people reach us for different products span so many different areas. But also the 5% means that we are relevant enough to them that we can invest further, because we're not just thinking about it from an acquisition standpoint. It's retention, it's profitability, all of these things, and that comes at a cost for us too. So in order to be able to deploy all those resources, we need to make sure that this is something that is long-term for us, and we're willing to make that commitment with them in return for them to be a partner with us.
Woody, some of your customers, are they reaching out to some of your competitors? Are you seeing multiple integrations, or in the early days, are they staying focused?
Yeah, we are trying to be, kind of neutral to all ecosystems. So we power any ecosystem, we power any carriers, right? So from the carrier point of view, I personally believe that the more open, the better. So eventually, whoever is the choice of partner is the best, right? So you have to be almost everywhere, because you never know what is the conversion rate. It may be good today, but it may go down sometime down, right? So the ecosystem is so dynamic. It is very hard to have this, look at the last 30 years, the bank assurance relationship is like a 10 years contract. In the internet world, nobody signs 10 years contract, right? Everybody is open, it's all...
Depends on the money, right? It depends on the money.
Yeah, but typically I'm talking about, right? So it's very open. They want all the potential product for their customers. So for us, the technology is very important. So the cost consideration, everything has to be out of the question. So for the carriers, if are onboarding our platform, there's zero initial cost. It's all variable based on the volume, right? So for the carriers, by going to our platform, that concern about if I invest, there's no volume, what do I do? That concern is gone. So you can very openly and easily try anything. So that is our value proposition to the ecosystem, as well as to carrier. The mistake, the cost of failure is zero. So you can really fail and fail fast, right? If the cost of failure is so high, you cannot afford to fail. So that is our philosophy. We want to make it so easy to try anything.
All right, well, I haven't seen anyone pop up for questions. Any sort of last call? We're at time. We'll do a quick lightning round. I'll say thank you to all of our panelists and just give them a quick 30 seconds to maybe share a little bit about what we might be talking about if we're here again in 2 years.
Well, sorry.
Oh, good, great.
I'm just wondering, when you think about the market for, like, the total addressable market for embedded insurance solutions, you think about personal and commercial, are there certain products that aren't right for embedded, or maybe will eventually be right for embedded? Just wondering what you think about kind of TAM for embedded insurance.
I can answer. I mean, just offer my opinion. I think anything can be connected. Okay, so I tend to use the word connected insurance instead of embed. Embed sometimes means hidden or invisible. I mean, for a certain product, it should be invisible, but for a lot of, like a big ticket, it cannot be invisible. It has to be a kind of separate decision, right? But regardless whether it's visible or highly invisible, it is connected. So every insurance product, in my view, needs to be connected. So everything has to be real-time, transactional, friction-free, everything is easy. So that is my opinion, right? So embedded sometimes can mean invisible. That is not possible for a lot of big products. I totally agree.
What do you think, Trenholm?
It's a really good question. And I think that for some of the more complex lines that require real legwork, right? When you talk about large fleet risk, you're talking about MVRs, you're talking about loss runs. Who doesn't enjoy gathering up, 5 years of currently valued claims data, right? The favorite thing to do. But that represents a real opportunity, I think, for the connected and embedded future of what we're talking about, because what can we use from a large data front as a proxy for motor vehicle records, for claims histories, right? We are trying to lead at the forefront of battery electric trucks, for example, and battery electric construction equipment. There's no claims history there. So what do? We have to engineer the closest possible proxy for claims history that doesn't exist, right, by other means with other data sets. And so in order to design an insurance product around that, you have to go to a set of underwriters that are open-minded, right, and willing to take a little bit of a chance on some of this stuff in the absence of true legitimate historical data. But I think we're getting there bit by bit. I think if we're back here in a year or back here in 5 years, my hope is that a lot of that traditional friction in the process goes away. It's a resource-heavy demand on the entire system from, carrier to intermediary to customer. Just think of all the time that goes into gathering those two data sets, right? How can we shrink that from here to here over the next few years? I think it'll make a massive difference.
All right. Closing thought, Jeremy, and then Eduardo, and we'll let everyone get to their whiskey.
Yeah, or Fireball. But to that, I would just say the question, when you think about personal lines and more of a commodity, there's things that are just price prohibitive, right? Like I love the idea of not just auto insurance but warranty. They try to marry those. When you put the warranty in there, it becomes very expensive. But on the plus side is it's worry-free, right? And I know there are some OEMs that have even done that, but there's a sticker shock to it. So I think that's the one piece that's a little bit challenging for that, is because it's a highly competitive price point for those products. I would just say that, but I love the idea of the connected piece at the end of the day, just making it easier, however that looks, just so that people, and I mean, you touch on that the whole time, ease of use, right, to make it that way. I love that idea.
Well, I would say we need to test those boundaries every time. As much data that we have at our hands these days, and the way that AI and all of that is evolving so fast, we were talking about it yesterday. I mean, before you would actually wait 10 years to actually see a change in the market. Today, a year is already like 10 years before. So what we need to do is try to anticipate and try to constantly push those boundaries, trying to understand better what is the ecosystem that we have, what is the information that we have to actually underwrite. Can we do something different from what has been done up until now? We cannot be tied to old thoughts and old ways. We have to always wake up saying that it might be something new, and I have to have an open head to actually be able to understand the market that we're in right now, and to rely upon the information that we have and the technology that we have. Because if we have all of that information and we don't rely on it, it will be hard to actually evolve. So I would say, just keep on moving along and try to see what the opportunities are ahead of you.
It's a great challenge to all of us to end up.
It should be.
Thank you so much. Let's give our panelists a hand.